tell me when. You know me, look, it's pretty casual, I'm not going to lie. So anyway, to open Adidas franchise, Ricky, imagine we just start talking about it now. Yeah, I know I'm live now. That's I'm hamming it up. You know, you can say I'm hamming it up.
You missed that, Mark.
Yeah, that's all right. No. Anyway, look, I'm going to get into it. First of all, obviously, look, I'd like to kick it off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and pay respects to elders past, present, and future. Also, always, it's not a one-man show. Godzilla podcast or Godpodzilla cast, whatever you want to call it. I should like to think of my own branding. Jesus. With Lee Monroe, but we got Ricky, the man, Esky, the man, Open Source Studios up in his biatch. Jeff went off with RJ, God knows where.
That's
the mic's sticky, but that's another conversation altogether. Yo, big shout out to Mackenzie, Phoebe, Miles, Millie, and of course Mio. Love you guys. Thanks so much for the support. And then we got a guest that I've fucking wanted to get in. I actually wanted you to be in last season, to be honest.
You say last episode ever. That's what I thought that was going.
I wanted you to be the last episode ever.
Like, oh, she's already.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, but I want to get you in last season. You know, like one of the things that we discuss is like making sure that we get like strong women on the show. And I should really introduce your name, Ms Hennessey, DJ Ms Hennessey.
Thank you.
Maxine Johns.
Yes.
Man, DJ extraordinaire, radio host, published author, owning your own publishing company now. You know, teacher.
Yes.
Now, mother, most importantly, wife.
Yes.
Good Lord, how many other hats are we going to chuck on tonight?
Many, and fly swatter, because I can see
you can see that
something
thing.
Trying to get involved.
I don't think it's big enough to pick up on the on the screen, but we'll do it anyway. But hey, you know what? I'm going to do this now. Should I do it now? Or should we do it later?
I'm all for this.
You're about it?
Go.
So Mackenzie found Godzilla. There's 8 to collect. Got to collect them all. Pokemon. So anyway, so I get to open this little surprise bag, Godzilla. Oh, so let's see what we got, right?
It is Easter show
Actually,
time,
you know what?
So
look, all you got to do is tear it here.
Yes.
I've already ripped it a bit.
Have.
There you go.
All right, I'll do
Let's see what we've got. Yes. Yes.
Very exciting.
I know. I'm not going to lie.
The sugar sachets at 7-Eleven.
I used to eat those.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, look, I have a problem.
Clearly. Right. So
there we go.
another sugar sachet.
You know what? Hey, you know. Oh, shit.
Is this
I think that's actually.
You got to build it.
I think that's actually Godzilla.
It is. Oh, it is.
It is an actual Godzilla.
Some sort of parts here.
Oh, fuck. That's
I didn't
complicated.
know
Yeah, no. My bad.
These little feet.
Yeah. Feet.
His hands.
So it smells like RG's feet.
It does. There's some sort of kombucha.
Kombucha?
Smell there. That's it.
Yeah, okay.
How do you say that?
Kombucha? Is that the pronunciation?
I think it might be. It sounds right.
Kombuki?
Kombucha.
Bullshit. Fuck off.
Is it? It's kombucha.
You're fucking with me, Ricky.
I'm actually building his arms for you. Look at this. Okay. Oh, he's punching on. Let's see what's going on. I don't know what. I feel like I'm in my.
You can tell your mum.
You can, but it's not like IKEA with the bad. This is just see how you go and stick his arms.
Fuck
and
IKEA.
he's dead.
Okay, what? We got all the fucking pieces? Oh shit! All right, don't stress. Don't get up. No, fuck. Oh, okay.
Looks like a little turd.
Okay, cool. Look, I'll tell you what. I'll take the remaining pieces of. But look, that is Godzilla. And cool. Let's wrap here. Thanks for everyone coming out. We fuck appreciate you guys. Much love. Cool. So look, I'll fix this. This has got me something to do. Other than obviously speak to you.
With all of the time that you have to do it.
Yeah, I think we're 10 minutes deep into the podcast now, so that's killed a good amount of time. But no, look. Okay.
Kombucha. We were
I would
both
have
wrong.
looked that up as well. Far out.
Kombucha.
Okay, cool. Many hats. But we like to take it back to the start on this, just to give you a little bit more context to who we're speaking to and who they are. So first of all, where did you grow up? Yeah. Who are you?
Well, first of all, before we get into that, I want to say thank you to you for affording me time and space in your space. You know that I'm extremely proud and in awe of you and your success and everything that you've done for the hip-hop community to date. And you're somebody that is truly inspiring. So thank you for sharing your space with me.
Humbled hearing that from you, yo.
Really means a lot.
No, thank you.
Really does. So I'm very, very, very excited to be here. So to answer the first question, so where did my origins?
Yeah, I'd say just and like growing up, you know, like look, I'm not going to lie. Every now and then, a little bit of South African accent just sort of rears its head.
It really does, especially when I was trying to open that packet. You're lucky the mom South African didn't come out, because then that beep thing would have come across the screen. Yeah. So Johannesburg is where I was born.
Yep.
And I moved to Australia when I was 12, so 88. Do the math. 45 and proud.
The bicentennial.
The bicentennial. You know what? It was
time.
A huge
It
year.
was huge.
I remember the ships on the harbour and
I was
all
at
the
Circular
pomp
Quay.
and
I just remember it being like packed.
Yep.
The
I mean, flags and the hats.
Crazy. Yeah. Australia with the green and yellow.
All of that. The green and yellow.
The green and yellow, yes.
That's it. And you know what? To come from a country like South Africa at the time, where that sort of pomp and ceremony didn't really happen.
Yeah.
We were dealing with other things.
Oh,
so the reality of that, to then come to this sunburnt country with all of this happiness and water and teeth, people smiling at you all the time. It was a lot for me to take on board at the time. But yeah, you know, it was interesting. I actually got asked a similar question a couple of days ago with an interview that I did for a Jamaican radio show, and they asked me the same thing, and it was just interesting, sort of talking about the early days, because it's not that you forget, but you're so entrenched in what you're doing now. That 100%. You've got to stop and really think about, man, like, how have I evolved? Where did I come from? Does that still resonate with me? And it absolutely does. I'm beyond proud to be South African, and I wave that flag all the time. But I really take my hat off to my mum and dad for making that boss move to move here, to give me what they knew wasn't going to happen in the situation that we were in.
Yeah.
And just to push forward for the daughter. At the time, it was just me. My sister came later here.
True.
So I was like an only kid for a long time.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How
16 years, and then she had to come in and ruin that apple cart. Love you though, Maddie.
Love you though, but we all know the truth.
No.
Ran on my parade. My bicentennial parade.
16 years on my own, I was fine. But no. Seriously, Mum, they tried to have another child for quite a while. But I think just with everything, South Africa and moving here and trying to assimilate into a very, very white Australia back
That's crazy,
then.
because I was actually going to say that was actually sort of a little bit of a second question as
Did
well.
I ruin
but
it?
like,
Sorry.
No, absolutely not. I can let in perfectly. Have you read my question sheet? But coming into that, it's so funny that your perception, it's crazy, because I see you just go straight back to almost like a child perception when you speak on that, right? And you're like, sunburnt country and happiness and smiles. But then quite quickly you would have learned about still like ignorance and racism. So how as a kid, I mean, look, obviously you would have, coming from South Africa, and you've obviously would have been dealing with issues there as well, but coming here to be hit with, oh, wow, happiness, great, wow, teeth, and, everyone's harmonious, and then be like, oh, no, it's still racist as shit.
It's still racist. It's just a facade. The facade gets you in. And I'm so glad you asked me that, because it was. Look, I dealt with it back in South Africa, but my parents decided, they wanted to put me in, better schools and, better environments. But you can't remove where you come from, right? So I grew up in the hood. I did, and I'm proud of that. I might not have acted like it, but you don't have to act like it to come from it. And that's something I had to tell, especially when I started traveling to the States, and, they've got that big, the hood. I'm like, you don't know nothing about a hood. I'm from the original sort of, world-renowned ghetto, South Africa, Johannesburg. But I might not step like that. But that's my country. That's
Doesn't
my
mean
home.
It's not there.
That's it. And it was my reality every day. And I just remembered, I went to elite Catholic convents, and there was only a peppering of kids of colour because they could afford it to go to those schools, but everybody else was, international expats, or, their kids were going to that school. So I grew up amongst that, but it didn't take away what I was from and, what I was about. And not all of my family could afford to do that. So there was that reminder too, and my mum and dad were just wanting to expose me to different things. And, we'd go through our daily trials of racism as a family. My dad, rest his soul, he copped it a lot. My dad was a musician back in the 60s, and he really copped it. My dad was darker skinned, my mum was lighter, but she's still, regarded as mixed race, and they couldn't date openly. My dad had to walk on the other side of the road. He couldn't hold a hand. They couldn't drive on the bus together. I mean, that's the legacy I come from. So when we talk about the current, it's a deep understanding. So the current racist situations that are happening, it's been going on for years. The iPhone's just making it more realistic and more real for people, right? So coming to Australia, I was under no sort of pretense that things were going to be perfect. I actually was really upset that my mum and dad wanted to move here, because I'm like, you're taking me away from everything I know, my family unit, my cousins, to move me to a smaller family unit here. I had a couple of cousins, but they were born in South Africa, but they grew up here from two. So they were like, "Oh, g'day, mate. How are you?" And I'm like, "What?"
I beg your pardon?
Exactly. Like, what? So it was that, and I was like, "Wow, okay, so they are Australian."
Yeah.
And I couldn't take that on. I had to be myself.
Yeah.
And it was I got the racist surprise and the racist shock when I started high school, and it was no holds barred. I mean, it was merciless. And I was bullied for 2 years relentlessly. That's knife crazy. To the throat, that type of stuff in the girls' toilets. Catholic school. Shout out. So it was
got that, kids?
That's it. Don't go to the bathroom.
FYI.
That's it.
That's crazy, yo.
So
what a transition. And I suppose that, obviously coming over here, and this maybe sort of semi goes into the next question as well. Like you earlier on, you look for a sense of community, right? And you look for a sense of belonging. And what is, like, I get curious about is for, someone like yourself, you're in here, you're young, although you're, old enough to know very much have your wits about you, you're still, developing. When did you start to then get into, like, what was I suppose your first hip hop experience, and when did you sort of maybe start to identify as going like, oh, here's like maybe a little pocket that I can sit in and feel comfortable?
Look, I think, also, where I went to school, again, it was very Anglo-Saxon, and that's fine. It was what it was. There were pockets.
That's fine. Except for the racist biatch.
Except for the racism and the bullying.
Fuck
everything
them.
else was good. Beautiful scenery, wonderful environment, birds singing outside of the racism. So, but I mean, look, I think it was probably high school, like the latter parts of high school, like year 11, year 12. I was, out of the girls' school environment and all of a sudden thrust into co-ed. Freaked out. Jesus. Freaked out year 11 and 12. Yeah, thanks, Ma. Do you know what I mean? No years of, couldn't get. You just threw me in, right? So I was a bit anxious, a bit nervous. I'm like, oh God, like these are, that's it. Like, oh my God, how do I deal? What do I do? And I just kind of, I mean, look, you find your footing and you do what you do. But I was a really awkward kid too. I had the braces, and because of the bullying experience, I used to always wear my hair back. I never wouldn't wear my hair out because I used to get made fun of, and I was so aware of how I spoke because I used to make fun of that too. And it's so I was this real kind of insular kid, if you can imagine. You look at me now, it's not, but
not really.
No. So
I think you're lying. No, just,
I think you're making it up, Max.
I get you. Well, that's actually probably a good segue to later, though, because when that starts to come out, we'll be able to be like, oh, shit.
So we touched on it about 2 hours ago, and we're still talking about it now. That's where this is going. So, all of that aside, I really, really found my strength through hip-hop. And I really found it through just, hanging out with some of the taggers at
Yeah.
school, the boys that used to
Bombers.
tag the
Yeah.
bombers.
Yeah.
Was a German guy, and I think there was an Aussie guy. So they weren't guys of color. They were just guys that loved hip hop, and I didn't see color with it. They were almost like the outcasts of the school in a way because they were into that,
Yeah.
and because we went to school in such a I grew up in the Shire. I love the Shire. I live out there.
I know. I
But
keep
it's-
telling you, you'll be like, nah, but fuck.
it has had its problems,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but it's still it was what it was, and back then it was no easy feat. So these guys, if they played hip hop, they got made fun of. We went to a predominantly, football school.
Yep.
So there's no basketball. It was none of that. So it was like the weird kids on the grass that would listen to this angry music, is what they thought. And this one guy I became really good friends with him. He introduced me to NWA, and I was like, "What? This is wonderful!"
Oh,
like
hell
sitting
yeah.
there listening.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And Public Enemy, and just that sort of stuff. A lot heavier than what I would normally listen to, but it was just refreshing to go, okay, this is what's up. I need to delve a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then I just started to sort of look into it a little bit more. And then my community, the South African family and friends that we had here, and that was friends that we started to, hang out with, their kids were listening to, Redhead Kingpin
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah.
And so then
Yep.
I started to go, wow, okay, this is what's up. And it just kind of grew from there. But it was the awkward kids on the grass with the trench coats. I don't know if I should have said that.
God damn.
But that's how
They
deep
were this
it
close
was.
to shooting up the school.
See,
Hip
but
hop
then he
saved their ass.
They'd bring out the can of spray and then he'd tag
Yo,
you.
I'm bomb this wall real quick.
That's it. So it was that whole thing. But I mean, look, they were this group. They were just really into the lyricism and the meaning behind it. And I guess for them, because they were being bullied too, it was that message of the oppressed type of thing. And
Yeah.
I didn't really talk about my experience too much with the higher school kids. I tried to forget about it, but it helped me to talk about it a lot more.
Man, it's crazy what music can do, eh?
It's amazing.
It's insane.
It's amazing.
What about then, going forward from there? So, because the question is sort of like, who were your first associates, like in hip hop? But, obviously you've sort of answered there, like, your first real associates were graph writers, right?
Yeah.
And guys that were bombing and tagging. And, it's crazy to me because what's really cool about in the Australian hip hop culture, even when you do take it back, a lot of the OGs do have very strong graffiti ties.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Even
Yep.
still to this day. And shout out to some of the OGs. We had Mystery on here, definitely an OG.
Man, he's amazing.
But then fast forward a bit, and you're getting more involved in hip hop, and so then who then trickling off that were some first big associates that started to get you into maybe other opportunities and stuff like that.
I mean, look, excuse me. I probably, I'd say, as soon as I graduated high school, obviously everyone's got the question, oh, what are we going to do? I didn't make it into uni. I think my year was probably the worst year scaled on the ATAR. I couldn't even become an ant farmer. Let me just tell you, that's how bad our whole year was graded. It was back then when they used to grade.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure my HSC results were fine, I was always like an average student, excelled in English, everything else.
You don't say.
Yeah, you
but
don't say. So I
anyway,
thought I didn't make good
Yeah.
of that because everything else paled in, income.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I always wanted to sort of go to uni. Then I obviously ended up going later as a mature age student. But so I thought, okay, that's shot. What do we do now? So trying to find out what I was doing, I ended up really wanting to pursue hip hop. I think early 20s.
Really?
So it gave me a couple of years. I obviously built up my music bank and what I loved, and I realized I didn't really like the harder rap. So
Yep.
even though I was introduced to it via the NWA and the Public Enemy, and even early Park,
Yep.
great. I always carried Park with me, but I think as I developed, especially as a female trying to find her way and try to find out what hip hop meant to me,
Yep.
Gangsta changed the game for me. Gangsta changed the game for me. Primo, his beats,
What album
Guru.
was it? Step in the Arena?
man, the one that had royalty.
Moment of Truth.
That's it.
Yo.
And Discipline.
That was no.
I think Discipline came after.
I think it was on that Greatest Hits.
Yeah.
Because
those two songs, it changed my understanding of what hip hop meant to me.
Yeah.
And it was that then propelled me to want to pursue something further in hip hop. I ended up being in the fashion industry to start off with.
Really?
Right? Yeah. Always wanted to be a journalist, always wanted to be a writer. But of course, at that stage, like I said, the ATAR was crap. I probably couldn't have even worked as a janitor at the newspaper. You know what I mean? At the newspaper. So I thought, right, flip the script. What else do you like? Let's go into fashion. So I went into fashion business management, got a degree in that. And I ended up being a fabric consultant. Like I sold fabric to fashion designers. So I worked with the likes of Camilla and Marks and all those people.
I love this shit. This is so dope.
Yeah.
Okay, crazy.
I'd like to think I've kept some of it. Probably not. Maybe the pearls, the embellishment. As an ode.
So you kicked off that?
That's what I did. And then, but the hip-hop thing was always in the back of my mind. But what do I do? What do I know? How do I get into this? I wasn't hanging out, per se, in clubs. I mean, I was going to the madness, those clubs back in the day. Shout out to Rodney O. Great clubs, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it wasn't enough to drive me to go, I want a career in hip-hop. So it must have been maybe another 3 years after that. I left the fashion industry, died out. It just killed my life. It wasn't what I wasn't built of that. And I just started I think I got a government job, just kind of, in there doing whatever. And I was looking through 3D magazine, like 3D, shout out to 3D.
3D World, yeah.
3D World, that's where I got my writing break from. But I didn't actually start writing for 3D at that stage. I saw an ad in the paper for a female radio presenter at 2RDJ, 88.1 FM. And that was the first radio station I started my radio career.
Yes. But, I mean, that question was down the road, but you're fucking mad. So this is where it kicks in. All right, sweet. I'm ready. Yes.
So here we go. So I thought, wow, that's an interesting placement.
Yeah.
Whilst I'm on break at my government job. Might just do. So I gave them a call.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I apply? Do you have any experience? No. I can speak lovely, though. Lovely speaking voice. I'm sure we can do something with this. Exactly.
What is it? Love song dedications.
That's it.
Yeah.
Richard Mercer. Back
Richard
then, remember
Mercer.
Richard Mercer? He's still around? Richard? Don't know.
I'm not going to bank on
Shout
it.
out to you, Richard. If you're watching Godzilla, you should be. And not the movie,
Dude,
the
I
podcast.
wish Richard Mercer was... That would be like... we'd make our day, right? Jeez. Yeah.
So anyway, so I applied and they gave me an interview. I came in. I had no idea. I just was like, I want to give this radio thing a shot. I knew enough about radio thanks to Hot 97 and Angie Martinez.
Angie Martinez.
That's so, most of the females you'll talk to from my era will always remember Angie Martinez as being the voice of New York radio. And I just thought, well...
And a strong female voice
man. A strong and still strong and respected female, right? Love that woman.
Yeah.
It's a bucket list interview for me. We'll get there, Angie. I'm coming for you.
Tag Angie up in this.
To Angie podcast. If ever you're
Let me just quickly tag Angie up in this.
That's it. If ever you're in Sydney. So anyway, so I did that. And then I just went through the rigors of radio training and ended up, I think probably about 8 months later, I had like the worst startup radio show time ever, 2 to 6 p.m. on a Saturday morning.
Oh.
And it was a wonderful eclectic blend of EDM and hip hop.
Wait, did you say Saturday morning?
So Friday, so 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday through to 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was a 4-hour graveyard shift. So I'm like, is this going to be played in the graveyard? Because who is up at this time?
They just got Rookwood Cemetery hooked up on all corners.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Beats for the dead.
That's it. I
Beat
think
you
that's
to
how
death.
the grave
Beat you to
diggers got
death.
their
That's the
albums.
tagline.
I'm joking. Yes,
Damn,
that's it. So that was it. So for I think it was for about 4 to 5 months I did that. It was hard, but I had to put in the hard yards.
Because you had to be there.
I had to be there. It was none of this electronic stuff that's happening today.
Analog.
It was everything. Push the tape thing, the CD would get jammed. Sorry for the technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. They're like, who's listening? And then you just get a call from a truck driver. Oh, g'day, love. Love that little bit too much of the swearing, though. Do you have something by Kenny Rogers? Click. He'd ring back again. Sorry,
you're breaking up.
You're breaking up. This is it. But you know what? It gave me the training ground I needed. And I had to just prove myself how to deal with stuff. And then, I put in a submission for a better time slot.
So then, because, obviously, a lot of people know you as a DJ.
Yeah.
And you've sort of obviously gone into applying for you talked about applying for opportunities later after this, but was that going into radio your first DJ experience where you're going to be like, okay, cool, because then obviously you take that opportunity into clubs, and did you leverage that radio and say like, hey, I'm a presenter on 2R DJ, and let me spin it in the club. Like, how did that connect come about? Like, how did that community sort of... That
was purely from the promoters that used to listen to my show, right? So I had a show called Club Flavors. It was the only R&B hip-hop show on that station. And I'm not going to say in Australia, because it wasn't in Australia, but I think Sydney, the sort of like the Sydney basin, that would have hip-hop celebrities come into the studio and actually do live interviews. Like that's crazy. Yeah, so for 10 years that was what built Ms Hennessey up, right? So I had that, and I wanted to make it the premier club show for radio, which is why it was Flavors.
Sort of like, as far as like at that time.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking back now as well, as far as like, if you wanted to be, if you were in hip hop and you wanted to really hit up, we're not hitting up any fucking,
none of the commercial,
or back then would have been, Nova was relative, wasn't even there yet.
Yeah, it was basically the FM. Community shows, and I mean, every dope DJ was on 2RDJ at the time. Shout out to Nasser T, Sam Boutros, like the real OGs.
Yeah.
They had show. I mean, I was in awe of these men. They're like brothers. So they were doing their thing. And Georgina Reid, I mean, if anyone wants to know how far back we're going, Georgina Reid was one of the main reasons why I wanted to pursue DJing, because this woman was the only DJ at the time playing in the major clubs when I was clubbing, and we're talking 20 odd years ago. This strong female was spinning these R&B soul funk tunes and packing out clubs like Riva and all of these amazing nights, and this woman was doing a thing, and I just remembered looking at her going, I want to do that one day. And then I ended up working at a radio station that she was on, and I ended up filling in for one day. And can I tell you the bucket list moment for me that was? I ended up becoming really good friends with Georgina, and she's a muse, and I really respect her a lot. So there was all these little nuggets that came out of that time, but I remembered there weren't many female radio house outside of Georgina Reid, maybe another world music lady that did it. The hip hop stuff was not touched.
No.
And the DJ exposés were not touched in terms of a DJ coming on with no one's heard my mixtape, bring it in. Guys like yourselves, these amazing rappers and, these amazing singers like Mike Champion, first ever demo CD gave it to me on that show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Daniel Merriweather, amazing. I don't know if you know Dan. Hello, I'm giving some gems here on my show for the first time ever. So this is when I sit and I think about
that's
what
crazy.
Club Flavors.
Daniel Merriweather, that's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? And Dan is still one of my favorite soul singers to this day. Is an amazing artist. So all of these guys, whenever they would come and tour and do things, I mean, Fat Man Scoop came into my only community radio station. He came in, and I'll never forget it. He brought a packet of those cheese and bacon balls, yeah?
Yeah. Cheetos, cheese and bacon balls.
Cheetos, cheese and bacon.
Yeah, of course.
He came in with his DJ.
I've eaten one too many of them.
Yep. Yeah. And he just proceeded to chew on air.
And you were like,
And I was like, "You're gonna take a breath. We're gonna have a chat." And he was like, "Would you like a ball?" And I went, "Did you just say would I like a ball on air?"
no,
Don't know.
a singular. Cheesy
but,
ball.
But you're really having a ball in that
Yeah,
bag,
yeah.
so I'm gonna let you finish. But
Yeah.
you know what? We had those with the things, and it was moments
Crazy
like that
moments.
when I was like, "Wow, this show is doing more than what I expected." But I know I didn't answer the question about the DJing.
So how'd you get into then?
Promoters used
They
to
just
pay.
call you up?
They used to buy ad space on my show, and it got to a point where they couldn't fill enough.
Yeah.
And then I got a couple of them going, "Yo, your track list is great. Your playlist is great. Do you spin?" And I'm like, "In the chair in here maybe." But no, I don't spin.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not a vinyl DJ. I trained how to be a vinyl DJ, but obviously a mass CDs because radio.
Yeah.
And then I got given a chance by one of a promoter who was starting a night at one of the clubs just down the road from, I think it was down the road from Hunter Bar. It wasn't the Hunter Bar, it was another pub in the city.
Yeah. Hunter Bar was a spot there.
Hunter Bar was. And Hunter Bar didn't ask me, so there you go. No, it's okay. I don't think I was Hunter Bar right. I didn't fit that. But it was cool because it was the place that I got asked to spin at. I got bitten by the bug and I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was literally live radio for me. It was a radio without being in the studio.
And no ad breaks.
No ad breaks.
Oh,
and no
love it,
phone
God.
call from a truck driver driving down to Perth. Driving
Oh, yeah. Old mate.
Rogers. But
Old
God
mate.
love him.
We'll call him old mate.
Old mate.
Shout out to old mate. Yeah. Man, that's crazy. Back then, though, as well, it would have been, I mean, it still is like a male-run industry, and and it does take a little bit more push for women to cut into it and step into it and make a name for themselves and get a solid reputation and I hate to say this as well, but a fucking real respectful reputation. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, she's one of the bros as much as she's one of the the queens in the industry. So, how was going out there and then asserting yourself as a strong woman in the scene? Did you find that maybe the radio
the leverage
reputation and obviously putting a bit of yards in there, did you feel that helped the transition, or did you feel that you still cop the brunt of that, male sort of dominated industry?
I love this question, and I'm always really proud to answer it because the guys, the men that I worked amongst, especially in the DJ world, nothing but love.
Really?
Nothing but love
fuck yeah.
and respect.
Okay, mad.
It was the touring DJs, or when I travel. When I would go on, not that I toured, but when I travel and I play in, places like, Melbourne and, other sort of areas. If I didn't know the guys, there was that
hesitancy.
Like, "Oh, you're right, love." Yeah, I am right.
You right,
Are
love?
you?
Got any Kenny Rogers?
Yeah, that's it. It was that. Or they'd come on and they'd have this attitude because they'd look out on the dance floor and I'm like, "Oh, I did that for you." You can say, "Thank me later." You know what I'm saying? They had this whole like, "Oh, did you?" Because the crowd is jumping and then I'm like, "Oh, you ready? You want me to keep them going?" It was just an attitude that they have, like, just "Oh, you're in the way. Get out of the way." So I would persist, take my time. "Oh, wait, they're going off.
It's
I might
cool.
do another.
I can press
So it was
stop.
That's it.
Now.
It. I did get some, but I mean, look, the Sydney boys, just nothing but love. I got mad, mad love for Peril in Melbourne. He put me on my first hip hop gig out there. Roger Abood from Midnight, he flew me out as well. Put me up at Midnight. So respect to the pair of them for taking a chance on me all those years ago and constantly flying me back for like major weekends. I remember being put on the stage at Midnight in Melbourne. It was Queen's birthday weekend.
Yeah.
There was like 1,000 people in that, if not more. It was levels. There was levels to it. And I just remembered getting on there. I always used to do this. It was a bad thing of me because I couldn't look at the amount of people because then I knew that I had to perform for them. It was this weird thing. So if I didn't
Makes
see
sense.
them, I'd just play the music
You'd
and
be
I'd be
playing,
good. I
you just
wouldn't have
vibe.
the pressure. And I remembered I had a friend with me, and she kept going, Max, look up. Because I was obviously just so, and I looked up, and she took a picture at that moment, and I was like, and they were like literally going off, jumping and whatever, and I had to go, oh, I'm forgetting, I need to time the next song and count, and got back to it. But it was that moment, and that photo always reminds me of I realized I'd achieved something that I didn't even know that I wanted. And it just, you know what I'm saying? It was that
100%.
a real aha moment of, man, like I just grinding constantly. And I looked up, and for that moment, I went, I did that. Is it okay to say I did it? Or no, I go back to it. And I still have that methodology of working now.
How many years was that then after you sort of turning around and going, like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know it's hip hop?
Oh, look, we're talking, I was, maybe 25. So we're about 6 years in.
Wow.
6 years in. But it was still, you know what? Hip-hop was still the side hustle. It was still the side job, because the security of having that job, and I think all of us,
talk to me about
I'm telling you, right?
Still to this day, Jesus Christ.
It's literally one of those things. I tell my husband all the time, you know, Jay will be like, man, you guys are great. The hip hop community here is amazing. Your artists are great. And I'm like, but
shout out to Jay.
you know what I mean?
You know, like, and the thing is he comes from a completely different appreciation for what the scene is and what it's meant to be, and and how it can be so much more.
Absolutely.
You know, so.
And being an American too, and he's out here going, y'all are doing hip hop like this, and you still working a day job to substantiate that crazy talent. Like when we first met, we used to talk all the time. He was blown away by the he still is by it. You know, he's one of your biggest fans, loves your stuff. So it's just a thing that I guess we've always done. We've always had that extra security, because you kind of have to have one foot in, one foot out.
It's crazy,
So you're running yourself ragged for your dream. But man, it was great.
Yeah, and man, it's just so it's so indicative of, you know, sometimes you don't know when the moment is going to be. Yeah. You just know that you got to be doing it. Otherwise, you're never going to see that moment.
You
know
have
what
to
I mean?
be present. And I think for me, I couldn't have started my career in hip hop in a better community, surrounded by better people. And you know what? I never ever wanted to be. I never ever wanted to emulate America. I don't think Australia ever needed to do that. And I think when we were going down that path, it was really disappointing, because, you know, people like yourself, they're honest, the raw, the truth of what it is like to grow up here, and your voice and your narrative is what is always needed here. Mixed in with the Americanism, it's great. But there was a time where it was going nowhere. And it was packaged to not sound like us.
It's actually crazy. It's crazy you say that, because that's sort of like a question or sort of two in, but in sort of pre-question to that, because then obviously, and I'll ask how it happened, but then also as part of the question. So then you get into like 3D world, right? And, you know, so you're in 3D world, but you would have been in 3D world as well. When you say things were packaged a certain way, you were like there at that time, right? Coming up from, you know, down the Shire, you know some graph artists, so you know you've done radio, you know, you're DJing, and now you're writing. First of all, how did that come about? But then, you know, second of all, how was it to? Because there was a peak then as well. I had a deal, you know, Phrase, Merriweather had their deals, you know, the Dawn Raid boys had their deals, and they were doing big things. Yep. You know, we were all torn. We were finally getting some magazine coverage, TV coverage. Yep. I was co-host TV hits and crap like that at the time. And so, like, to be involved at that time, how was it at that peak for you being a DJ and an esteemed, because we would consider as well, like we were looking at your columns and your write-ups and your editorials, and we're like, yo, you know what I mean? Like that's the one. Like
look,
we all good?
It's wonderful. I've killed a mic.
She needed a sticky one.
I've killed a mic. That's how much I'm talking.
Is that? We'll just make sure for.
Am I testing? Good? All good? Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, cool.
Has that ever happened to you before? You've had to change a mic live?
Man,
I'm the first.
Are you talking?
I am.
Talking some fucking truth bombs, wearing it out.
Should I take that as a you're talking too much, Max?
No.
Only joking,
Let's
no.
just, you know,
It's just like, I've killed the mic.
this
already.
format is unplugged. But
It
yes,
is.
but so,
Yes.
so
Well, to
And I'm-
answer it, because
Yes.
I know, so that you don't have to repeat, because I know it's. I started the writing sort of. It all happens simultaneously. Like the DJing really took off, like many years later. But I had gotten into it and I was doing it. So I answered the DJ question much later than when the writing started. So writing started first, okay. With intertwined with the radio, and then it was years, because remember I had my radio show for 10 years. Okay, so it took a while to build it up, and promoters were asking me constantly, and I kept turning them down, going, I'm not ready for that. That's not the exposure I want. I'm happy to just print radio. But with 3D, I think I was referred to 3D. I don't know if it was just in the traps with knowing people and, you know, hey, do you want to write some? And the editor of 3D, man, she was dope. I wish I remembered her name. There were a couple of them, but there's one. She really knew who to give feature articles to, who to give the hip hop reviews to. She just knew. And I think when you have a great relationship with an editor, you pretty much, it's Bob's your uncle. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So she knew my passion for it, and it would start off with like CD reviews, right? Album reviews. And then it was club reviews. Don't ask. Maybe ask me at 9. You know, it's getting, then maybe 11 o'clock, I don't know who's coming in, I don't know what's going on, but that bottle's looking good. Yeah, we're just going to. So I kind of went, the club review thing's not for me. I did club listings for a while too. So it was just those little things to do.
Dribs and drabs.
And then I got offered my first column. And that was the game changer with 3D. So it was the Club Flavors column. And so that was then the connector to the radio show. And then I saw how one can build the empire from that.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And they left it up to me as to who I wanted to put in there because they needed content. And I was like, this is an opening here for the people that don't have the voice. And it didn't even matter. It was like, do you rap? Do you know what a rap is? Do you know what a cipher is? If you don't know those things, I can't write about you. If you do, we might have a couple of...
I got some premeditated questions prepared earlier. Do you know what rap is?
That's it.
Hip to the hop.
Exactly. And there were some people, you know, they come to me and they kind of go, hey, I saw your column. Can you write about me? And I was like, yeah, you know, what do you do? And that was that. And then that started that love affair with the historical content of people, how they started their journey. Not knowing what was going to happen later in my life as an author and to where I am now.
Yes.
And the blog and all
That's
that.
That's actually good context then for
so it's in answering this, I'm seeing the steps to the process of me and the journey. But I loved that column and I loved what it exposed, and it was always written with the purest of intention to just expose my beloved hip-hop community that I loved so much, and I believed in each and every one of you guys, and I wanted your shine. I wanted you to shine. So I would very rarely have internationals in that. It was just locals.
No, which is crazy, and that was actually what was crazy about it. The other thing is like, you know, it's a pretty dog-eat-dog industry and scene specifically because, you know, look, no one's really eating. Everyone's trying to eat the most. So it's like everyone's fighting over scraps. But you were always happy to be the champion to everybody else's wins. Do you know? Do you feel that that's just a natural thing for you, or do you think that that's something ingrained from you as a kid? Like,
I think it's a natural thing for me. I love to make people happy. It's something that, and I think maybe being an only child for as long as I was, that came from that. Maybe my upbringing had a little something to do with that too, but I don't like seeing people not being given their credit, and you know, the talent and knowing what was going on behind the scenes, I think, and what the greater community didn't know is what also pushed me a lot more to champion for that. But it was more just being in that environment of greatness. Yeah. And knowing that I was, but also knowing that we weren't being given any shout out. We weren't being looked at as a community as a whole, this is it. You know, like I know I'm going to segue here, but you know, we've always looked to like, you know, the Russell Simmons, or you know, and all these guys, and like, you know, Dr. Dre, and you know, all of these amazing hip hop pioneers who created their communities. They created what they've created. They've created all of these things that, you know, all of these other artists now are trying to emulate, right?
Yeah.
It started with them, and it started with Tupac, and it started with maybe even obviously going back, Kool Herc with DJing, maybe even a little bit further back. It starts with us. It started with us, as far as I'm concerned, with the industry, if you want to call it that. But we weren't pompous enough to call it that. It's the community, you know, until people started getting signed. Then it's the industry. Yeah. I didn't want to get into all of that wank. No. Never did, never ever wanted to. So I always kept it at that grassroots.
Keep it a buck.
Trying to.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, tell me this then, right? Because then, you know, the sort of deterioration of that first wave, because it was, and I think that a lot of it had to, and this is, I mean, ultimately, this is just my opinion. I can't really, you know, it's not fact, but I think that maybe a little bit of a lack of identity initially was probably what was the curse to the scene. You know, it's very Americanized, very packaged, and we hadn't sort of really gained our voice. Underground really certainly had, but they were very fucking staunch about it. They'd shit on, rather than being embracing of kids and trying to up them,
so much.
They were like challenging them and try to fucking boot them out and keep them down.
So much so, and thank you for reminding me that there were a couple of, you know, times where I had the opportunity to interview some of the underground artists, and they refused because it was 3D and it wasn't real. Yeah. And so that made me then go like, well, what's the great divide here? Because we're all part of this pool, but you couldn't say that. It was almost taboo to put the two together. 100%.
I suppose as well, like, you know, it's indicative of immaturity, right? And I'm not saying the individuals. Yeah, just I'm saying of the culture and the scene at the time. Yeah. So, but then to watch it deteriorate, and then for 3D World to just you know, and brag, and like all those street
honestly
publications to die. You know, how was that for you, being such a massive contributor, particularly to, well, you know, they called it the urban section, I suppose, base. Right? Home base. Yeah. Particularly to that home base section, you know, how was that for you to see something that had been a staple for so many years of go down?
It was gut-wrenching. I mean, look, 3D was really a lot of, especially our era, it was the Bible, you know, for what was happening around town. Artists travelling, they were featured in 3D. I wrote most of the feature articles for the touring artists, you know, Lloyd Banks, Boys to Men, you know, I mean, the cover article. So I've got all of them at home. Jay's told me many times, do you think it's time to, never in a million years do you touch it.
You can you just get me some photos and PDFs? That'll be dope, thanks.
I will.
Surely there's an ugly mug of me somewhere. I'd be like, see, I was there then.
That's it. So, you know, we've had this. I've got a real sort of love-hate thing with letting go of that historical stuff. But, so to see that go, it was like, why? Why take the only real kind of voice at the time that we had to really expose who we were? But then with the other, you know, obviously once something dies, something else comes up. And so then we obviously had the Request Mags. Yep. And I got to write on Request Mags.
Ronnie
so, and, you know, and George,
Dave.
That's it.
Yep.
And then,
you know, Tom Piper even worked in there.
Tom Piper, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then of course Simone with Urban Hits.
Yes.
An amazing 100%. Publication. So that changed the game again.
Yeah, that was the real first glossy commercial, like bang.
Come on, you know what I'm saying? That was stellar, right? Yep. So a great opportunity to write there, and again be exposed to incredible artists, you know, but you know, driven, developed, designed by her, which was great. You know, it was a great magazine.
Yep.
But then again, with everything, it also went away. Yeah. You know, and it was like we were always on this up and then down, and this up and then down. And then what? You couldn't even find the source and vibe unless you got your news agent to fly it in for $30.
Yeah, it was.
Do you know what I'm saying? And then they come prices. 2 months later, and you're like, oh, NASA's got another album out now. Yeah. So it was always something. We were always on the back foot
100%
of something. So to answer your question, it was gut-wrenching. And it was, again, just that familial gut blow, like, oh, here we go again. It's hip-hop. You know, why don't we get the respect we deserve, you know? But then I think my life sort of took another turn then, and that's when I really started DJing a lot more.
Yeah.
So the DJ light sort of shone a little bit more. Got a residency at Red Room, which I'm so grateful for like 8
Big
years,
shout
I
to Corinne,
think.
yo. Red Room.
And again, amongst amazing DJs, I'm really proud. I was one of the only females on that headlining list for 8 years.
That shit's crazy, man.
So it was a proud moment, and you know what? Again, the guy, we're like brothers. It was a family. There was no, I shouldn't be here, and should I? No, we all grew together, and that club was, it's just we know what the club was. It was amazing.
That was one of the longest running clubs in like the history of like hip hop and R&B.
Absolutely. So there were great moments, and I mean, I was obviously saying a couple of the other DJs. I got a chance to DJ in Perth, and shout out to Scooby, man, DJ Scooby. I have a lot of respect for Scoobs. He flew me out there, showed me the way the Perth game does it. So I can't say I haven't done the hard yards with the DJing aspect, but I also didn't chase it a lot. It was just something I really enjoyed doing, and I still do to this day. I don't do the big clubs.
Yeah.
I do the intimate pub scene.
Kept it a bit more intimate these days.
Ambient, and every now and again I get a bit of should we put NWA on? I don't think the Shire will
Should
appreciate
we
that.
fuck the police?
With a schnitzel on the side. I don't think
Palmy.
that's going to... Yeah. So we're kind of doing a little bit more of an ambient vibe, but I'm loving it. I'm still getting to do it, but I have great memories.
Oh, man, 100%. And you know what? And, I thank God, photo evidence and stuff like that as well.
And it was before Facebook, hello.
Yeah,
before.
amen.
So this is where you got to go, it didn't happen if it didn't happen on the gram. Oh, no, it happened.
Yeah.
Oh, it happened.
Straight up. Man, sometimes I'll tell people, like, back in my day, I'm like, fuck, you know what? I'm really sounding like that.
That's it. But
Let me try and show you what I do right now.
You've got the Polaroid and in the Kodak thing.
Yeah.
So that was...
It's really faded. Look, well, that's... this is still when they had the dates on the prints. Yeah, this is in 97.
You know what? You're jesting about that. When I was putting my first book together, because I know we're probably going to talk about that, but I had to go through photos. No, my first website. Oh, gross. The first website, right? And I had to go through photos of, like, so who have I met? And I'm going through the Polaroid pack. And I accidentally dropped, there was some sort of liquid. I don't know if it was the kombucha. But something had spilt. And on the photo of Jay-Z and myself and Busta Rhymes and myself. So there was that. And then there's that scratch, like when the paper comes off.
Yeah.
Those two, why those two photos? And there's no negatives. But I was there with the nail polish remover.
But not too much.
I just smudged his hand.
Okay, cool. Then it looks like...
So on those two,
Nazy.
that's it. Nazy. No, you can still see. You still see. It's still there. I quickly took a photo of it so that I could then go, it did happen.
Yeah. See. Smart. You smart.
That's it. Tried.
Long distance relationship.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I knew you were going here.
Yeah.
I knew you were.
And I know that this, drags out because you and Jay and big shouts to Jay, man, Bailey and Miles, love your family. And it's always a hoot when our families come together and the kids, they love each other. It's it's always fun. But, doing all this, meeting Jay, holding that relationship, becoming a mother and, it's so good. But, obviously Jay's Navy?
Yeah, he's ex-Navy, yeah.
Ex-Navy. So, only having so much time. And I actually remember it was like, I remember the time when it was like he's almost
coming,
wrapping up and he's coming and it's going to be cool. It's so dope to have him around now. And, he is, and he's like one of the biggest supporter of, I think, like everyone that's involved,
absolutely.
But, how was that for you? And, how has it been for you now having everyone, there for you to
sort of full circle
to help you absolutely.
It's I mean, look, it's and I will try and keep it short because that's a movie in itself.
Yeah.
Which I am trying to script, but he won't let me at the moment, but I'll get him. So I got you, boo.
You're like, babe, look, this is like the book of all books. Like, this is the one that's going to make bank. We're going to be living.
That's it. Yep. Oprah's coming here. Forget about Meghan and Harry. This is where it's
You can jump on the couch.
That's it.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I met Jay at the pinnacle of everything that I was doing. And, I actually met him DJing for the US Navy. I was asked to DJ for a special event
Yep.
for them, and I remembered specifically the day his ship sailed. This is terrible. I'm going to talk. But anyway, my mum, God love her, she rang me 6:00 in the morning. I used to live in Glebe at the time, so this was when I exited the Shire for a little while.
Oh, right.
And
Right to Glebe as well.
Right to Glebe, and near the action.
Yeah.
And so my mum rings me. I'm going to work, and she goes, "Oh, turn on Sunrise." Been watching Sunrise all that time as well. So I turn it on, and she's like, 5,000 of them sailing in, and I went, "Oh, are you on some sort of sailor radar network that you?"
Yeah.
She goes, "You going out? Gonna have fun?" I mean, Ma, are you asking to go? Does Dad know? What is the call? I'm going.
What is your angle, Mum?
Where are we going? She goes, "I just wondered if you and the girls were going out." I went, "It's an odd wake-up call, but no, I will be avoiding the club situation." I said, "I'm actually DJing on Sunday nights. I'm sure there'll be some sort of melee, but we'll let it go." And I just, "Mum, doing some sort of hoochie call." I put the phone down, whatever.
Stop with that. Living vicariously through me. Jeez, Mum.
And she
Ease
giggles
up.
every time I talk to her about it. But anyway, so, long story short, ended up doing this party for the Navy, and left the gig, and then I went to a spot in King's Cross.
Yep.
A girlfriend of mine wanted to hang out. She'd never hung out, and sailors were around. So I was like, "Do you really want this trouble? Do you really want it?"
Be
Yes,
prepared.
I do. Be prepared. I had to run down the hall. Don't make eye contact.
No.
If they ask you for a drink, say no. You got your water. If you say yes, forget it. You're on your own. I can't
Yeah,
help
yeah.
you.
I can't help you.
Right? So
You're in
ready
God's
the
hands
wa-
now.
Jesus took the wheel.
Jesus.
Jesus took the wheel straight to the bar, and she had about 5 of them around.
No.
And I went, "I see her hair. She's standing up. She's good."
Okay,
so anyway, cut long story short, we were having a bit of a dance, and I just remembered her looking up. All right, it was like with the glow, the light is, and it was the slow motionness of it, and she just looked up and she went, "You might want to turn around." And I remembered a bit shaded, like it was dark.
Yeah.
And I went,
Was there a fucking palm tree in the club?
"Why is it like a draft?"
Yeah.
Something. But there was this shadow, and she's like, "You might want to turn." I said, "Does it look like Green Mile? Does it look like?" And she just went, "Turn around."
Yeah.
And I did, and and there he was, and he was just sort of standing there, but like weirdly. I'm like, "What are you standing here for? Do you want to say something to me?" And he just stood there having a dance, and I went, "Okay, he's cute enough. I'll let that pass."
Yeah.
And so, we just kind of had a dance, and then we started talking, and then he basically was like, "So what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I'm a DJ." And he's like, "Hmm?"
Yeah, that would have got him like, wait,
What do you DJ?
hold up, and then the dude.
That's it.
Yeah.
What do you DJ? Hip hop. And
Nah.
he's like, "What do you know about hip hop?" I'm like, "How much time you got?" And then boom, that was
Fuck,
how that
that's
went.
it.
So, from there,
Take a
he had
seat,
to-
young man.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I am a little older than him too. Maybe about a year. That's not. But I always tell him, "Respect your elders. I know more than you." And he goes, "Not about hip hop." So yeah. But anyway, he ended up then having to, go off and do his job, and we had another 10 years in, so he did 20 years. So I had 10 of those with him.
Man.
And it was, I mean, look, it was hard.
Yep.
But I think it was right for at the time. I was able to just do me and, concentrate on my career, but I still had someone that I loved and that I knew supported me across the miles, and I felt the same way for him.
Yep.
Obviously, when marriage comes into it, there had to be a decision. And I was never going to be married and just here while he was there. That's not a marriage.
No.
So I thought, well, time to see what else is out there.
Yeah.
And I remembered my last show on to RDJ.
Yeah.
Club Flavors was when I had to end it.
Yeah.
And leave, and it hit me, but I was excited for what was coming next. I'd never been involved with anyone in an environment like that. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew I'd make it my own. Yeah. And leaving Sydney and calling Sicily home for 5 years, because that's where we ended up moving. Oh, but he got me with, we're moving to San Diego. Cool. It's a 2-hour drive to LA.
Yeah,
This is great. I can do
100%,
me. They've got people I know there. Calls me back 2 days later. Oh, no, the Navy have decided to send us to Sicily. I mean, Sicily by way of Santa Barbara.
Sicily sounds like
So-
Venice
That's
Beach,
it. Or
Venice.
Sicily,
This
like,
is
yeah.
still California.
Yeah, that's it.
Right
I
now.
said, so they got the S's wrong, or you just didn't hear?
yeah.
And he goes, no, they've changed. And I went, what's there? What are we going to do? And I started to panic.
What the fuck is?
Started to panic.
Yeah. your Leichhardt started coming out.
That's a light glare. That's it, Norton Street. But it was the best thing we ever did.
Really?
And I miss living on that island so much. And he told me the minute we landed, he was like, your life's going to change with this. Not only from a military spouse perspective, the slow down perspective. I was on a constant high here. I was DJing and writing and hip hop and bang, bang, flying here, there, everywhere. And it just came. And I was waiting for sheep to cross the road. That was the traffic jam.
That's
and no,
crazy.
No traffic lights. So you just stop and hope the little Sicilian man isn't going to go at the same time you're going to go, and then there's going to be a melee and the mafia are going to get involved. All of these things you were hoping were not going to happen. But when I think back on it now, he was right. It was one of the best chapters in our life together, was that island, and that's where our first son was born. So without family around, we had the community of the other, like-minded, military families that I'm still friends with these women today. And they were amazing women. I don't get it twisted. When the men are gone, the women are we're on a war front as well, and that's home. We take care of so much when these guys are gone, and it's it's not for the faint-hearted. So
bro, that's so cool.
But Sicily was dope, and I DJ'd there too. I
really?
DJ'd in Naples. I DJ'd
You're like,
in Sicily.
international DJ.
I try, but I didn't do that, and I don't do the because I don't like that sound.
That's Nino.
Do not want to get involved with that at all.
No.
But
don't worry about the cues.
I DJ'd on the bass nightclubs and stuff. It was a great experience, and they were like, "Who's this Australian chick?" And it was great. It was just great. I did radio out there, and they loved the accent.
I love how you obviously not, knowing you as well, there's no way in hell you're going to be stopping. But I love how, not stopping as well. Like, going somewhere, like, the factor of fear, being so established as somebody, where you come from, and carrying that global culture and coming here and being like, nah, fuck it, I'll hold it down here. As much as I hold it, all you got to do is give me music and it's
just a
an
matter
opportunity.
of geography for me. But I was always trying to push, the Australian hip hop stuff. Like if I get a chance to choose a song on AFN Radio, Armed Forces Network, what song would you like, Maxine? Well, do you have anything by Fig Kid? Do you have anything by Phrase? What is that? By the way, I actually have the CD. And they go, oh my God, Australian hip hop's great. So you were heard in Malta, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
So it was.
Shout out to my Maltese fans.
There was always an opportunity to kind of push it, but it was in Sicily where I started writing my first book.
Man, I like how you did that.
I know.
You shucked it in there for me.
I just did.
Me?
Yeah.
So your first book. That's exactly the next question. So what? Writing your first book. What I suppose sparked your love of, a columnist and somebody that's giving you touch points of a culture to then transition into formulating a substantial body of work. How was that transition? And did you have a game plan with it? Was it vision board, like I'm going to have a published book and this is another you keep saying bucket list opportunity, or was it more just an expression that sort of then eventuated into a
I think it was more of a it was I won't say a boredom buster, because I wasn't really bored, but I looked at where I was at the time. I'd gone from being like this sort of top DJ and all these things in Australia, and then all of a sudden I'm folding towels at the local Navy gym. And that was the job, because that was it. Like that was the only real jobs that we could get before I got into the marketing department and then started doing radio stuff. So while I was in between a cycle of the gym towels drying, I would sit there and...
That is a yawn fest.
It's a yawn fest. And then, of course, the whole, g'day. They try to talk Australian and you're like, don't.
Shut the fuck up.
And then I'd just be like, whip with the towel. Did I get that in your eye? Sorry, I didn't mean to whack it.
My bad.
Don't do that again.
Yeah.
How do you say sweater? Jumper?
Oh, yeah,
Say it again. I'm tired of this game.
yeah.
You need to take your towel and go and
look,
run on
3
the
years
treadmill.
ago, bro. Like 3 years ago, this might have been fucking hilarious. But like right now, I'm just trying to get the fucking towels done and leave.
Getting tired, man.
Yep.
It's getting tired. So I bring this notebook and I would just sit there writing. But I really missed my work here. I missed the community here, and it was just almost like a love letter to who I was here. And I did have an identity issue because I didn't know who I was in Sicily. I was now, and I don't say this in any way of being disrespectful, because you're not just a wife, you're not just a mother, but there were women who were happy to just be that.
Yeah, and that's
And
cool.
absolutely, and I utmost respect. But for me at the time, I was so used to being so many other things, and that was an addition. But it wasn't really an addition. It was all that it was, and it was all it had to be at that time.
Yeah.
And I had to redefine myself.
Yeah.
And at some point in life, every person, man or woman, redefines themselves. It's
Agreed.
something that we crash, and it's not a crash and burn, but it's a crash and realization. So I was crashing. And, first marriage, newlyweds, and then, new mum. So a lot of news, but new environment that is it's indescribable, okay? Just this hip-hop girl thrust into a military community with people that don't sound like me, look like me, yeah, because obviously, African Americans, there's, Latinos, Filipino, all of that. So great multicultural divide. But the sound and the lifestyles, chalk and cheese.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm talking to a lot of women who were dated their first boyfriends and married them.
Crazy.
And we're having tea and Betty Crocker cupcakes, and I bought something because I couldn't be bothered baking it. I should have baked it. So I started thinking, I can't just throw money at it, Jay, I got to bake. You know what I mean? So then I started to hone in on that side of me and go, it's okay to be a homemaker. It's okay to be that and this.
Yeah.
But I realized that there when I had nothing else but that.
Yeah.
To be the two.
Yep.
But it was having conversations with these women where they'd be, so what did you do in Australia? You ready for this conversation?
You're like,
don't want to have you.
They're just sitting there with Betty Crocker like,
in hip hop.
and then you met who?
That's it.
And then you did what?
That's it. And I had to really
Then they
kind
start
of
checking
give,
themselves like, fuck, I'm just baking cakes.
this is it.
Wow.
But this was it, and it would happen so much, and I would try to make friendships, and then I'd have
And then
to
they'd be
go.
like, Jay, tell Max to shut the fuck up.
That's it.
I got my missus hit me up for turntables, DJ equipment,
That's it.
right? I just want to go home and have a beer.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was. I had to be real careful.
And you would have been empowering these chicks.
Whoa.
I mean, not in a bad way. I'm just saying,
but
though, like,
100%.
it would have changed the whole fucking dynamic.
100%. But I had to be real mindful of how it came across. And Jay and I would talk about it, and he's like, these women are not what you're used to.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah,
not
of
a
course.
bad thing, but you got to just go gentle. So, okay.
Maxine, go gentle.
That's
Maxine.
it. Go gentle. Just don't go inside.
He's
So
like,
then I went,
"What?"
right,
Yeah.
we'll pull it back. And so I became an ombudsman for my husband's command.
Oh.
And I just looked after the new families that arrived into Sicily and helped them
Bless.
assimilate. And if there were problems, domestic violence issues, I'd be on the door. What the
Open
hell's
up,
going
it's
on
the police.
here? What the hell's going on here? So it was,
Hi,
that
I'm
was
Maxine.
that's
Yeah.
it.
Look, here to kick your ass.
That's it. That's it. So that was a great role, and I did that more for the assimilation into his life and into the respect that I have for him and for his incredible role and what he was doing. I needed to become a part of that. So I had to take it off the hip hop cape a little bit.
Yep.
But every now and again it would come up, and that's how the book helped me feel connected. 7 years it took me to write that.
Man, so good, because then, it obviously speaks to the organic feel of it as well, but then, coming back here and transitioning back into Australia and sort of going back to, well, I don't know, like you're establishing some sort of different normality over there.
Yeah.
And then coming back here and basically being two versions of yourself simultaneously. How was that transition back here? And how did then you realize your, writing efforts then could become something
Something
published?
else. Yeah. coming back here, everything had changed. Print media is different. There weren't many. Again, back then we didn't even have outlets. But when I came back and I was away for about 5 years.
Yeah.
Always keeping an eye on what was happening back here. Keeping connected and seeing what was happening. But I started to see the dwindle of, and I hate the term, but I'm only using it for reference sake. But the urban representation in print.
Yep.
Null and void, right?
Yeah. It was already poor, but it only got
very
worse.
poor, very poor. And then there were key writers that were writing in bigger newspapers, but very biased pieces, very kind of almost catering to that sort of news media type of thing. And I'm going,
narrative,
it's no real grit. And so then the online world, the blogs, right?
Yeah.
And I remembered when I came back with my eldest son, Balian. Jay had to go downrange to Afghanistan for a year. So we were separated for a year.
Yep.
And I was like, I chose to come home. I didn't want to live on a base as a non-American, not being able to work with a child without my husband and the reason why I'm there.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation and he's like, I support you to go home. I know you want to work. You want to get back into work. I needed to be with my family in case something happened to my husband, basically.
Straight up.
We had to have that conversation, right?
That would have been a turbulent time.
It was very hard. We got training on it when the wives had to get, if something happens, if your husband doesn't come back home, this is who you call. You will get a knock on the door. If you don't live in America, call this number if you haven't heard from it. Like, it was that stuff.
That's crazy.
So I'm sat here going, and I've got a 2-year-old and I'm, all of this stuff, right? So I come home, family, great. Got a job, went back into the government just to work, just to get something going on. And the old heads, like, hey, you back? You coming out tonight?
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Hey, you getting back into radio? Yeah, cool. Shout out to Stan Bravo and Mira, who were doing a radio show at the time on Koori Radio. And they got me on as a guest, and it reignited that for me to get back in radio.
Dope.
But I wasn't ready to be back in studio because
Yep.
I had a young son and I had to focus on him, but I needed to get my feet wet. Shout out Corinne, Red Room, come back, Max, you got to get back on the decks. Cool, dope. So it was almost as if it was we're waiting.
Yeah,
it was a great feeling, and I'm really grateful for it. Got back on, so things started to move again, but I was different because the other part of me wasn't here. And I didn't know what was happening with him, and I couldn't know because it wasn't my place to know until he told me.
Yeah.
So I'm half here and I'm half there, and we've got a whole one of us right here going, Dad's not here, So there was a lot of stuff going on, and I tried to just fill my parts, but also fill out my son's part. And I think I did an okay job. I think I kept him all right. I remember making a little doll. There's this company in the US, great, called Daddy Dolls.
Yeah.
And for, kids who are parents who are in the Navy. It doesn't have to be a dad, it could be a mum as well. And you send the fabric of your husband or your wife's uniform, and they make a fabric doll with the picture of them. So it was one of Jazz standing in his uniform, and I found it and I sent it to them, and they just scanned it and made this plush, but it's of him.
That's crazy.
And I remember giving it to Bailey on the day after his dad flew out, because he didn't understand. He just thought Daddy was going on a ship and would be back again.
Yeah.
And I was like, he will be at Christmas. And he flew out 2 days before New Year's. So it's memories like that for me that I go, wow, we did that,
Yeah.
Yeah, so... And then trying to get back into it. Yeah, the online blog thing. People are like, you got a blog? What the hell's a blog? What's a blog?
Blog.
Yeah. Have you got a blog? You got a blog? I'm like, I don't. But I'd love to know what one is.
Sure.
So then I had to learn
again
how to get on that. And then Ms Hennessey Speaks blog was born.
Killer. First book release then?
That was a hard one. That's a hard one to talk about because my first book, like I said, it's 7 years. It took me. Lots of drafts, lots of stops. Everyone was mentioned in it. Everyone.
Yep.
It was like a love letter to every single person that I've shared time and space with in this community.
Yep.
Written with pure intention. A lot of people are all on that gossip. So it's not. I'm not about that.
Yeah.
It's certainly not in print. You know what I'm saying? Let's just out.
Let me.
This is my moment.
Yeah.
No, it's an homage to the brilliant the talent, the hard working behind the scenes people. I mean, we had everyone in there. We had the rappers, we had the DJs, we had the media people, the PR people. We had every single person that I've spent time and space with was mentioned in that book. But writing it, cathartic experience.
Yeah.
Awesome, right? Bit long-winded. Okay, Maxine had 800 pages. No one. That's a thesaurus.
Yeah,
okay, we're
yeah,
not
yeah.
KRS-One, Max. Let's just dial it back.
God.
That's not the hip-hop Bible yet.
We don't have that many hours.
No, we're not. So, and then I guess it was just trying to find a publisher. And I didn't know anything. I just knew I had this great book and I wanted to share it. And so, I was doing this entrepreneur class at Sydney Uni. And the guy that was teaching it, he started his own publishing house. And great opportunity. And a lot of them wanted to write books. So, I've got a book. Yeah, narrative changed a lot.
Really?
Yeah, understood 800 pages is way too long, cut it down. So I had to cut it down. 500, still too long.
Wow.
Cut it down more. No one really cares who you are because you're no one. It's what was told to me by a couple of the editors that were editing it. And no one really cares about hip-hop. Really?
You you step out of it, you'd be like, look, I know you can't. I know you don't because you've been shitting on me this whole time. But if I actually step back into myself, would you actually listen for a change?
That's it. And it was a constant. And I was like, you don't know the reality better than I do. And I'm not speaking on behalf of these people. This is my experience.
Yeah.
So it was part
firsthand.
sort of memoir, of my journey to that point as a woman in hip hop in Australia. And it took into account into everything, like what we've just spoken about, the Club Flavors years. When I went to New York for 6 months and pavement pounded and met Jay-Z and went into Bad Boy Records and asked to speak to Puffy so I could get representation for the DJs here. Didn't get Puffy, got his intern. But, meeting Busta Rhymes and having a Subway sandwich with him, this was off Facebook, but it happened.
Yeah.
Meeting Chris Lighty, God rest his soul, and him telling me to go home and make it happen in Sydney, make my mark in my own backyard and not become another number in New York City.
Yeah.
These are gems that you can never, ever dismiss. So, and to have someone who has no idea, no respect for the industry, no respect for the culture, tell me that no one's going to care about this book. So let's just do it as a how-to manual. That was a tough pill to swallow. So
100%.
I pursued with it because I promised it. And I promised myself that I would deliver it to the community, and it came out, and it was very different to the current experience that I'm having with this book.
Yes.
It wasn't really received by the community. Some it was, a lot of others just that I didn't expect.
Bypassed it.
Yeah. Like it
Rough,
didn't happen.
man.
So it was. But look, everyone has these moments. Everybody, especially with books, because I think maybe some people thought that it was going to be I don't know. She's going to tell... I don't know. Why would I do that?
But you've never been that way.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting for me. So that book, I was sort of...
People like fucking drama, eh?
It's weird.
Yeah, fucking weird.
It's weird. So, anyway, so, yeah, it was hard. But anyway, she was published, and I'm proud of her. But I didn't talk about it for a long time. I did the promo thing. I did, the radio shows. I think you were... on the edge one night. I came in. Shout out to
100%.
K Sarah, always supporting. Came on there. We spoke about it. You and I had a chat too about it, and did all of that stuff. And then I just sort of left it because it hurt. It hurt for a long time to know that I'd gone through the pain of the cathartic experience, writing out those memories, sharing that. It's a vulnerable position to write a book, especially when you're writing your feelings on being a part of a community. So you're not talking for those people, but you're talking about your experience with them.
Yeah.
So there was trepidation. Yeah. And then to have it, cut that in half, crap that. No, you can put a small picture of yourself on the back. I'm sorry, I'm paying you.
Front page, bitch.
This is it,
Yeah.
So that then was the push for me to, if I ever wrote again, do it on my own terms.
Man, 100%. And you... obviously transitioned into that now, and it's funny you say that because now it does have a certain level of peace.
Yeah.
It feels like being an outsider looking in, I suppose, knowing you and knowing, you know, the family and the history and being involved with you over the years, it's crazy to see you come full circle and now be in a position where, you know, with the current release, or your new release, I'd rather say, She's Empowered, and you really reaching out to all these wonderful women that you've been involved in and seeing everyone. And you know what was really cool to see at the launch or the launch of the book. Mate, there's not many fucking people I'll go all the way to Cronulla for, I'd say that much.
Yeah, thank you so much. With your family too.
But with my family in tow. But what was crazy to see was just, you know, I love the men there.
Yeah.
You know, big shout out to Zig and Kev and Kev Hannibal and you know, Mike Champion, of course, and obviously, you know, other guys obviously I didn't, you know, fully know there, but it was just great to see these guys. And these guys are like, and I guess it goes back to your DJ thing. Like we really all are there to support and you know, we love what you do and we love what you stand for and the way that you come across for it. So, you know, we're there in the droves, but then to see you be able to really enjoy that experience of having those people around you would have been a lot different. How did you get back into the space to be able to deliver something written?
Lee. Great question, and thank you for the acknowledgement of that too, because I didn't get to enjoy the first release as much as I wanted to. The first release is called How to Live for Love and Hip Hop.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And get it now if you want. It's on
Yeah, still, we've got to rack those numbers up.
You
Yeah,
do.
let's go.
It's on Amazon, but just so people know, I did
Link
not.
in bio.
That's it.
Wait.
I am the bio tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to put it
but
in.
yeah, so that one was purely... I made no profits from it. Paid to get it published, made no profits. Went entirely 100% to...
Talking about my hip-hop career, let's go.
100%
It's a wrap.
to charity. That's it.
Yeah.
Opportunity Australia is where that one goes to. So I'm happy. Whoever purchased it, thank you so much. But, you know, fast forward, what are we looking at? That one was released in 2015. So 2015 to 2021, a lot happened in between that. I took a bit of a hiatus. I still obviously was focusing on the blog. The blog gave me a lot of pleasure. Got to meet and speak to incredible people, like international upon international. It was just a brilliant experience. I couldn't even believe some of the people I got to speak to. So really grateful for that experience. Ms Hennessey Speaks blog. So I focused on that a lot. Jay kept telling me, when are you gonna write another book? You can't get spooked by the first one. You got to write another one. You got to do it. I'm like, when I've
That's
got...
why I love Jay, man. So when we're not around, Jay's just in the corner. I reckon you'll be sleeping and be like, you got to write another book.
That's it. Constantly.
In your ear. And you'll be like waking up and be like, babe, what's up? I've got to write another book.
I just had the stream. It was
yeah,
like,
babe, you do you.
You
do you. Whatever
you
you
go,
think.
girl. Like that's
Yeah,
that's
man.
exactly
You know I'm here to support you, right? Like whatever you choose to do.
He was like that for a while, and then I had to tell him to shelve it for a bit because I just wasn't ready to put pen to paper in that fashion. I needed something to drive me a little bit more.
Yeah.
So How to Live for Love and Hip Hop out there, super proud of it now, and I'm hoping to do a re-release of it because it is a brilliant book. But with She Is Empowered, which is the current one that's out now, I needed it again to be in my narrative, and I needed it to be again something of purpose, something that had a message, something that would hopefully change the way women see ourselves, and it's not about all of that kind of feminism stuff. I mean, we're all about that. It doesn't
feel like that,
but it's not about. No. I wasn't trying to be proletarian with it at all.
Yeah.
But it came to me in COVID last year. We were all suffering. The creatives were all suffering, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't perform, DJing, forget about it. 70% of my income gone,
yeah.
right? Grateful that I had the teaching job. So shout out to the people that I teach with and do podcast and hip hop beats. It's just brilliant that my life has taken that path. But the book was always there, and I just decided last year, I went, you know what, I don't need to reach out to celebs anymore, because they stopped responding to the interview requests, because what are they going to talk about? They're not making music themselves. Everyone's in a slump.
So just like,
but
fuck
it's
this.
the same. It's like a merry-go-round, and I'm like, need to reach out to the people I know here. And I thought, what better than to reach out to the sisterhood that I know and that I respect and there's some superheroes in this community,
Fuck,
man.
there is, yo.
And when I say community, I don't mean the hip hop community.
No.
I mean outside of it. There's a couple of hip hop ladies in there, but outside of it, the women in my circle, I was like, these women have voices and stories that could change the world, and they're just mums. They're working mums. They're single mums. They're entrepreneurs. They're great business women. They're media personalities. There's a whole gamut of women in there that I went, could this work?
You know what's crazy? Hearing you speak about it, something that's sort of sticking out is that, like, although that first experience might not have been worked out ideally, if you hadn't have had that experience, you wouldn't have been in the space that you would have been in to then go like, okay, cool, I've done me as a strong woman, done my story.
Yeah.
Now let's go outwardly and look at the same story, but everyone's unique.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. And I needed to go through that first one. I needed it. I needed to feel that sort of, wow, and to go, oh my God, that sort of vulnerability really sort of shut down. And, I had to work through all the emotions that came with. And now I'm super proud of the first book again. It's just, it's an interesting journey that mind takes you on. But yeah, so COVID, sitting there going, nothing's happening. I need to do something. I need to create.
Yep.
So I thought I'm just going to reach out and see what happens. And I formulated the questions, and I reached out. I had a list, and I'm working on the next two. And I have a list because I know that it's making a difference. And I know that these are women that wouldn't ordinarily go, oh, can I be in a book? Because it's like a weird ego-y thing. It's weird, right? I have an issue with it too. Like, I'm doing all these things, and it's got like a spotlight on it, but I hate the spotlight. Like, it's just the weirdest thing. Like that light.
Yeah.
And I'm,
Surprise, a good one.
It is, but it's necessary, and I get it.
Yeah.
So I reached out, and the responses were unanimous. It was a yes, even with all of my diatribe, because I like to paint the picture. And you're just like, yep, I'm there. What are you telling me? The backstory. I'm right there, Max. So I got a lot of that, and I got a lot of no's too. I did, and I had to understand that not everyone's ready to share their truth. But I just wanted those women to see that I saw them in that light, and it's okay if you don't accept that, or if you're not ready to step into it. It's cool, but just know that I'm asking you. And
know that I'm asking you, I respect you, and don't worry, more books to come. So when you're feeling like talking, I got you as well.
Not with that voice, but I know exactly what you're saying. So so that's how that kind of happened.
Man, it's so cool to hear the full story.
The full story, yeah. And then I also thought, listen, I'm not going to let somebody else butcher it and change the narrative. It was written in these women's voices. They wrote it and sent me and trusted me with their stories, and I wouldn't dare let anybody else alter that. So I went, start up your own. Maybe it was no, it wasn't him, it was me. I was publishing imprint, publishing imprint.
It was my internal voice. I'm not going to give him all the credit.
So then I started that up, and that's how that happened.
So
10 months ago.
Coming back around, because now, you're I don't want to say you're on the other side because you're still in it, but now you've done so much. And accomplished so much, and cemented yourself as such a leader, both in voice, print, and expression. How do you feel now as being a little bit of an advocate for the younger generation of women and stuff like that?
I don't know if I even see myself as that yet, Lee.
Yeah,
as I'm still a work in progress. I still am discovering depths and levels to myself that I didn't know existed. And with each sort of barrier that I break through, because I suffer with anxiety terribly. I have suffered with it for a long time, and I didn't realize that I did, and it came from the bullying and crippling
you got to know where it came from as well.
It was with an experience that I'd had just before my dad passed 2 years ago, and I was working for this terrible company, and there was a situation there with the manager, and I was like, I know this feeling, the trigger.
Yeah.
You're trying to bully me. This isn't going to happen. And it clicked, and the anxiety I used to feel going into that job and seeing this person and knowing what they were getting away with and how they were treating me, I just was like, enough. And that's when it cottoned on to me that it was something that I've suffered with since 13.
Yeah, because our generation was different.
You can't tell
there was no addressing
right.
anxiety. Here's a fucking glass of cement.
Can't have
Drinking,
a lie
harden
down.
the fuck
You'd be
up.
right. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
So it was
Crazy.
that. So knowing that, and then having to push through and sort of write and have people trust me with their truths and go, oh, well, I deliver this the right way. Oh my God, like that. The anxiety was real, man.
And
the
yeah,
struggle
and
was
you would have been
real.
like, I got you.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be the
Yeah.
facilitator
This
for
is
that.
it, you know, and then also trying to do the balance act, you
Balancing.
know, with the, I've got 2 boys now, you know, my
Yep.
little one, Miles. So
He's crazy.
he's
Love him.
crazy.
He's the
It's
best.
the name. We
It
knew
is.
the name was going to tip it, but love him to
true.
death, love him more than anything. So, you know, there's been a lot of those sorts of changes to come to this, but the full circle of it is, I think, just owning where I'm at now and being okay to celebrate my wins and not feeling like I have to play it down to make other people feel more sort of adequate. And I realized I did that.
Oh, that's one of my favorite quotes, yo. You know, there's a quote. Your playing small does not serve the world. I think is one of
Yeah.
the lines. There's a massive quote that
Yeah.
it was in Coach Carter.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Coach Carter.
I'll put the
You
quote
could
in the
have-
comments.
You could have just owned that yourself and
Yeah.
didn't have to give Coach Carter. But, you know, and that's it. And I think it's being okay to go, yeah, I haven't arrived, but I'm getting there. And
mad.
it's interesting to see where it's going. And now with my imprint, it's the MHP
Publishing,
That's
yep,
it, Ms
I was gonna
Hennessey
say.
Publishing. It's just another sort of add-on to the Ms Hennessey Entertainment brand. So
The ever evolving.
ever evolving. There's more things to come as we go on. But I'm learning and I'm getting used to myself taking on more and being okay with running that. And not-
100%.
Yeah.
Yo. Man, that's pretty much it for me. I'm so glad I had an opportunity to come in and get you sitting down.
Thank you.
I usually will throw it to questions. Eski, yeah, got a couple of questions, baby.
Got a couple of questions for Ms
Ooh.
Hennessey.
Yo,
Hey, question.
Any more projects writing wise?
Absolutely. I do have a really, really important one coming up. I'm hoping releasing August, September timeframe. Obviously, I work with a US sort of development partner of mine as well to sort of get things moving on that end as well. But this next one coming up is tackling the importance of Black Lives Matter and the black men that I have in my life, their experiences, whether they're expat Americans, whether they're South Africans, seeing what's happening on a global scale to black brothers in the US and anywhere that there's a lot of that racial divide, what it feels like to watch what happens to people of your own kind and their narratives on that. So that was a very difficult one to broach. And again, I've got men that have trusted me with their innermost experiences on the topic of racism and how it's affected them all their lives, and also living in a country like Australia and having to deal with it when it's passed on as a joke it's a very important one. And how I deliver that, it's there. The importance is not missed on me. So that's the next one coming up. And then I've got another version of She Is Empowered. It's going to be along the inspired line and reaching out to more women that are doing incredible things out there, and they live among us every day. So 2 big ones. I've had a lot of people ask me about children's books too. I have to put that hat on
I'll
at
do
some
the drawings.
stage. So I hope that's answered the question. Yeah, and then another hip hop one hopefully next year. Yes.
That's great. Just it's not a question, but any advice for people that are interested in writing? Because you're quite involved in that field.
asking for a friend.
Yeah.
You know what? The biggest thing to do is just to start. Even if you're just writing like a journal, or you're writing like thoughts, or sometimes they say if you're having a bad day, you write a letter to yourself or to whoever maybe is making you feel sad or whatever. You write a letter and get it out. And from that point, don't throw the letter out. Keep it. and create your own little personal book of that and read over it a year later and see how you're feeling and see how you're going. A lot of writers are born out of some of the most horrific trauma in life. They just write because that's all that they have. But then they're also born from just experiences, just everyday things. Don't overlook anything that happens to you. If you want to celebrate it, if you want to enjoy it, if you want to be angry at it, write it down and don't be scared to, share it with people. It is a very vulnerable task. It's very vulnerable, but publishing companies like the one that I've started is what's there for people that want to get advice and want to share maybe their manuscripts with me and have me read it and help them on that journey. That's why I started it. So just start writing.
Oh, fine, I will. 100%.
A last question.
I was going to say, yeah.
Words to any young people who are interested in getting in the music industry.
Sorry, repeat that one for me.
Any inspiring words to young people who are interested in getting in the music industry?
Oh man, 25 years later, and that question is still being, which is great because it's a great industry to get into, but don't have high expectations of being the next one. Just be you. Truly be you. Don't chase deals. That doesn't matter. Never really did. Maybe for a small amount of time it did back then, but it wasn't also in the true account of who you are as an artist. But just, believe in yourself, man, and take criticism too, because you're not going to be good from the start. You might be able to carry a tune or play a beat or catch a note or even as a DJ, but everyone's whack at some point in their lives. Be okay
100%.
with the whackness, take on the criticism, and then just perfect it. And if you're really hungry for it, man, nothing will stop you. Ask questions all the time. Find a mentor. And you know what? If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right for you. But also don't get spooked too easily, because it's hard yards, and we're living proof of it when we never really had a lot of help back then. So we've got a great community, and just use it and respect it, and respect yourself and your craft as well. Don't let anybody change your narrative. Hope that helps.
100%, yo. Yeah.
And that's the masterclass.
So I've got this book idea.
That's the masterclass, is the coach. Yes.
Man, crazy.
So I'll tell people where they want to get the book. I know they probably. I don't know.
Shout outs. No, I was going to say
Wonderful.
Any shout outs, any last info that you want to.
Absolutely.
Pop out
So
there.
with the books, both of them, right? How to Live for Love and Hip Hop is on Amazon.com. That's the American site.
Literally link in comments.
Literally
I'll put the link in the
Thank
comments.
you.
Yep.
With She Is Empowered, it's available Amazon.com.au. So no shipping involved with that one. So you can get that one delivered to your door here in Australia. And there's also an ebook version, which I have my own ebook store.
Yep.
So I'll give you the link to put that in as well.
Perfect.
It's my own MHP publishing ebook site. But yeah, you know what? Hit me up on my Instagram, like MHP_publishing is my Instagram handle, or Ms Hennessey Speaks, another Instagram handle, for any questions or any information that you want. But shout out literally just to my family for the support constantly, my boys at home, just for being the constant inspiration, and to the women that were involved in this book. I cannot thank them enough for their stories, made it a reality, and they're all just superheroes to me, and I can't wait to start the next one. So thanks for trusting me, and thank you to you for your time and space and for your legendary status.
Oh.
The interviewer becomes the interviewee.
Bless up. I had to do it at some stage. Shit. All right. And big shout out to look. I know you said shout out to the family, but I'm going to shout out. I have to mention Jay. Thanks for getting her to wear some Max 90s. I know she's an MX girl.
He didn't get me to.
Nah,
He just
she
said
turned
he'd
around. She'd be like,
appreciate
"Yo, I'm gonna wear these joints, Jay. What do you think?" He'd be like, "Well, do you?" Because I would have worn some Air Force Ones. He'd be like, "Listen, that's not
Yeah.
Sydney. That's not a Sydney
No,
joint right there." So
no.
we're matching. It's cute.
We are matching
Little
today.
Max 90s girl. Yeah.
So
swear.
dope. So dope.
Man, that's a wrap. Big shout out. Obviously, Open Source, Ricky, love you. Esky, love you. Jeff, RJ for being stinky. It's all G's, love you both. Kombucha Boys, you know, that's going to be their name. That's a rap
think
group
so.
name. Yo.
Kombucha Boy, Sticky Mic Handlers.
Oh.
Oh, that's,
That sounded
that's
real.
another.
That's bad.
That might have to
Yeah.
cut the tape.
But yeah, cut it there. But shout out to Mackenzie, love you.
Definitely.
Phoebe, Miles, Amelia, Mio. Yo, stay safe. God bless. Laters.
Thank you.